Well, good evening. It's 7:17 p.m. in Vernon, British Columbia on December the 19th. Getting pretty close to Christmas. A little rain and snow here. In fact, I went out this morning at 7 o'clock and I thought for a while I didn't even think I was going to make it to Desert Cove. It was so, roads were so terrible. I mean, it was dark, still dark, and I'm driving down this back road I usually go on to get on the highway, and it was like 6, 7 inches of slush, and a narrow track. It hadn't been plowed, and going along there at 50, 60 kilometers an hour, didn't go any faster than that. But if I just got off the track just a little bit, it just pulled me over like crazy. And at one point, I was going along there, and I hit a bad spot, and it pulled me over. And the traffic was coming right at me, and I was over on the other side of the road, and finally got back over the other side just in time. Oh, that was awful, just plain awful. That's worse than snow drifts or anything. You get a real wet slush like that, 6 inches of it. It's warm, it's going to melt and go away, I suppose, but that came in overnight. So much for, I guess, winter. We're going to have some winter for a day or two anyway. And then, no doubt about it, Christmas hits at, I think, the middle of the week, Wednesday. So that's basically, people like that because then they get just about the whole week off. Yeah, I don't think people are that much into Christmas as they used to be. I know, well, when our family was young and whatever else, Christmas was a big thing. Grandchildren, I'd go and pick them up. They're maybe like 6, 7 years old at that time, 8 maybe. And I'd say, we've got to go and get a tree. Now you guys got to pick out a tree. Okay. And then we'd do that, and then we'd head home and pull a tree in the house, get it set up. And I told them, now it's your deal. You got to decorate this thing. And so they were just really into that. One thing I did during those few years there is I had a string deal. I'd buy junk for the kids in, I forget where I'd go. But anyway, I'd go and buy just, a little cowboy hat, bow and arrows, just nothing but stuff like that. And I'd put them in a big shopping bag, tie the top, and then I'd take a string. I'd hide them away in the garage somewhere. Then I'd take a string and run it all around, out through the laundry room, come around the hallway and back into the kitchen, and I'd tape the string to the wall with a name on it. They got so they couldn't wait for that, We'd have big supper and all that. And I'd say, well, you gotta wait till, it's ready, And can we do it now? Can we do it now? And I'd say, okay, go, and whammo. They'd follow the string all the way through the hall, in the garage, all over the place. Finally, they'd find their bag. And it really worked good. And I kind of laughed, like they got some pretty snazzy presents. I mean, clothes and jackets and fancy, expensive stuff. And they just look at it, oh yeah, that's nice. What do we get in my stuff? Yeah, and I guess that's why that's why parents and grandparents and whatever go like Christmas, because that's their time to do things like that. They love doing that. And, you know, when I look at things though, now, I mean, I don't, I don't have anything to do with Christmas anymore, really, other than if they want to invite me for a meal, I'll go and say, oh, what a nice big meal. But Christmas is such a farce. I mean, I didn't really think about this or talk like this when I was 30 years old or something, and kids growing up, and, you know, none of that. But now, I mean, I never even give it a thought that December the 25th in Israel is winter time. They have winter there. And there's no shepherds out in the hills tending their flocks by night. None. And as far as I know, Jesus never said to celebrate his birthday. Because he never said where, the Bible never says when his birthday was. What Christ did mostly is he celebrated the Passover. He had a Passover meal before he was crucified. And that's the same day as his crucifixion. That's the same day they talk about now as his Christmas. No, sorry, no, that's not his birthday. But anyway, he celebrated Passover, and I think that's a factual deal, and that's a fair thing to do, is to celebrate that God passed over them and told them to paint their door jambs with the blood of the lamb, and they'd be passed over. And all in Egypt, everybody, the oldest or something in the family died that night. Well, you know, it's funny how a person doesn't clue into things when he's 25, 30 years old or whatever. And it takes a long time. That's how the world and basically religion gets away with it. There's so many farcical religions going on strictly as a money grab. And get a program on TV where you can get them to send money in all the time, and pretty soon you're a multimillionaire, and you got these big cathedrals you're building, and you're flying around all over. You know, you're next to a con artist, and I don't think that's going to go over very good for them. And when people, each of them say that our way is the right way, you don't go over there because we're the right way. And that's exactly what they do. Well, you can't have 3,000 right ways. There's only one right way. And I think there's more than one that gets close to it, but maybe not right on it. The rest are all phonies hell. Well, that being said, that's the part of the world that human beings live in and have to pass through. You have to pass through without being misled. And it's too bad that religion had to mislead people even before politics. Now politics has taken over. We're in a greater deceiver and even religion. And it's evil. It's what it is. It's satanic, because he's the god of this world, and he can influence. He can't force anybody, but he can influence. He's great at influencing, and let's face it, he's influencing enough. Finally, people will drift that way, and they'll do it because he convinces them that it's their idea. Right now, there's a chasm, I guess you could say, in the world. Those that believe what Jesus Christ said and God said, and those that don't pay any attention to it. I don't say that they don't believe it, but they don't pay any attention to it. A lot of them don't know about it. The ones that do know about it don't agree because it interferes with the lifestyle. Or so they think. So, the thing that I've listened to for, 60, 70 years? Well, more than that. I started going to Sunday school when I was about 6 years old. Seven, I guess. And I've basically been leaning that way ever since, and I'm 92 in April. I'm not 91. And so I've been at that, I haven't been a fantastic churchgoer or anything like that, but I've been leaning that way and doing that kind of stuff for a long time. The thing is, for some reason, the people I grew up with, associated with, when I grew up, they weren't really into that much. I was more into it maybe than they were, but I went along with it. The partying and all the stuff and whatever. Carrying on. And I carry on when I was 20 years old or so. Oh, boy. And now, it has become more and more clear to me that the reason God arranged the business of being saved, or what he called it, from your own sins, that Jesus Christ would die and pay, because in God's world and in God's laws, those who break his laws die. They have to live by their laws. And, it was plain and simple. God knew before he ever built a sun, moon, whatever, that he was going to have a family eventually. And he was going to have sons. He had, most likely, millions of angels and all that. But he was going to have sons. He didn't say that they were going to be in his image, but they were. And anyway, that was decided between God the Father and the Word. If you read the Bible, that's what it said. And the Word became flesh. And it was decided that when he became flesh, that he would be sent to this planet, Earth, as a baby, born on this planet, and would live for a certain amount of years. It didn't say how long, but it ended up 33. And he was going to have to die for the people that God was going to create as his potential sons, because God knew they could not keep his law, and he could not change his law. His law is absolute, it's holy law, it can't be changed. So if he didn't do that, he wouldn't be able to have sons, because he would have to kill them all. They would all have to die. So he had to have somebody to die in their place that was equal to that. You know, God's way of doing things is so, it's pure. You know, you can't find fault with it or anything, but it is so different than human laws. Now, what never seems to come across to ordinary people, oh, and it doesn't come across at all to the elite or the, you know, politicians, people in places of more power than the normal everyday guy. It never seems to register that when God and the Word made that contract, that was before there was anything. Now, what seems to be a thing that just absolutely misses the point with people, totally, even people who lived a long time, is that God had to start to build a universe of everything to get it to the point where he'd have a planet Earth, and so far from the sun, so it was just right. He had to have different magnetic things and gravity and orbits and all that stuff, and did all that in the universe. I mean, millions of stars, I guess. I don't know how many, but. And then he had to fine-tune this planet to make it a livable place for his sons to be born and temporarily go through this temporary world, to have time to make a decision to be his son or not. It had to make it voluntary. Where they said, we want to live with you forever, Father, and we honor you and we worship you. Thank you very much. That's what he has to have. Now, to do that, he had to have a male and a female to create more and more people. Because in his setup, in his style, it's big. Everything he does is huge. Like, there's nothing in the universe that is not his. Totally his. You don't hear him bragging about it in the Bible or anything, but it is. It's all his. Now, it's gotten to the point now, it's been going on, that it's been going on for thousands of years. And there's been, they say about 60 or 70 billion have gone through the Earth age so far. I think it's more. You know, we haven't gotten to the end quite yet, but it's certainly coming, and it's getting, you know, speeding up. Things are speeding up. Things are depleting. Things are kind of getting wore out and whatever. You know, of all the animals and species that has been on this earth, it's most likely millions. And they've disappeared and disappeared till now. It's getting less and less all the time, and species are disappearing. That's because we live in a temporary world. It's not a permanent world, not at all. I realized that when I was 15 years old. Not totally that, but I realized that I was here to make a decision about something, and I believed then it was about God. And kind of funny, but that's happened to me. The idea to me is that such an outstanding, it's such a tremendous plan that people can't seem to grasp this plan. They are living in a plan. God's great plan. Certainly not mine, not yours. It's all God's plan. Right to the nth degree. And he says he's going to create a new heaven, a new earth, and that's going to be permanent. And he's going to bring a city down. That's going to be his headquarters. And he's going to be there. Jesus is going to be there. And all his sons are going to be there. How many that is? Don't know. There's going to be a certain amount resurrected by Jesus, and whoever is in his book of life will be resurrected on the day that he comes down, and the trumpet blows the seventh trumpet, and he comes down to this planet, and he finishes off the war with these people who are warring against Israel, and he basically wipes them out, and he starts his rule on earth, telling people to beat their plowshares into, or maybe beat their swords into plowshares, which means back to an agrarian way of living again. People living off the land, more or less. And to me, that sounds like what it's going to be. And the thing is, it's such, when I think about all the things that God had to do, and he had Jesus do it. Now, Jesus and him are all part and parcel of God. They are God. Jesus is God, the Father is God. The Holy Spirit is God. That's the family of God, as the way it's been presented to me. And it kind of makes sense, because they're not men, they are gods. And when I say it, it's amazing to me that people can't recognize this, or that the people who are supposed to preach the gospel to people miss the point. They're preaching about all kinds of things. Politics, this, that, government. What's that got to do with it? Nothing. You come with absolutely zero, and you leave with zero. The body you will go around in is not yours. It was supplied to you by God's own power and the power of creation. And you know, you can have women being well, what do you call it, influenced by Satan so much, using jealousy and vanity. And vanity is a very strong thing. It can make people do all kinds of things. And jealousy is there, and vanity. Two of the biggest things. That's what brought Satan down. Was vanity. Jealousy and vanity, and it's still going on with him. And he won't give in, or won't quit anyway. The trouble is, he's been judged already. He's just waiting for his turn in the big hole. That's where he's going. Until Jesus takes him out again and uses him again to get rid of the last bunch of dissenters. that will come in 1,000 years after he takes over. And that cleans up the whole thing. And he's cleaned them up, and most likely God knows every single one that needs to be cleaned up. God knows if you're going to be in his kingdom. Jesus knows. I don't know if Jesus actually knows, but in his book of life, you can't save anybody. I can't save anybody, that's for sure. Jesus said that God, the only way you can get saved or changed and your sins forgiven and whatever else is if God calls you to his Son, Jesus Christ. He has to call you so that your direction goes towards Jesus Christ, and eventually you will go there and you will believe it and you will be converted or whatever. And you realize that we're just here to make that decision, no other. I think I could harp on that all day, every day. And so could you, and we'd still never get enough people to understand that here's what's offered. You're being offered, I'm being offered, a life, existence, forever, with the creator and the owner of the total cosmos, universe. I'm being offered, and you are being offered the highest level of existence next to the Godhead forever. Now, if you can put that to somebody that way, that how can they say they can refuse that? You have to be insane to do that. You honestly can't refuse that. You could refuse it by being obstinate, stupid, whatever, but not a person who was rational and understood that he is temporary, that he's just here for so long and that's it. Jesus said, no one's gone to heaven except the one who came from heaven. That was the turning point for me. I thought, good grief. And I had to listen for years in church, but he's in a better place now. And I used to think, BS. I don't believe that. Especially my uncle died, he was 63. He never went to church one day in his life. He was an outdoor guy. He was a action guy all the time, good-natured and whatever. And I spent a lot of time at his place growing up, going hunting with him, doing this and that. And he was, like a good time guy, Yeah, that was too bad actually. And I don't know if he's going to get a chance or not. It would be really sad if he couldn't get a chance to say, I made a mistake. The biggest problem lots of times with people is they want to, or they want to be stubborn, but the idea, and I've said this before, so it's nothing new, the idea that the population of this world has pretty well, I'm sure, I know in this country it is, and I'm sure it's in other countries too, is that you grow up, you learn to walk, and you do this, you get to play around as a kid for a while, you grow up and then you start going to school, that's what I got to do. Then you go to school for a while, and once you finish school or whatever, then you got to get a job. Pretty soon if you get a fairly good job, well then you're going to have a family. You're going to have to get married and find a woman and get married, yes. And then you're going to have to work at your job for at least 40 years or more. And then you can retire. Oh, yes. For maybe 20 years. And then you die. And that's your life. It's a dead-end life. God's promise, Jesus' promise, is that if you believe that God created everything for your benefit here, to come here and to make a decision to be his son, you can be accepted into a whole new, different world, not this temporary one. This is a temporary one. That's the point that doesn't get across to people. They don't get it. They honestly do not get it. And when you get it, you say, I should have known that. That makes sense to me. And you're supposed to enjoy yourself while you're here. I mean, it's not that you're not supposed to enjoy yourself. And God's plan was that you should have a family, and you should have a fairly big family, because families are good. And that's the truth. I grew up in that. I know that. When I grew up, family was everything. Every weekend, we went to either this one, or that relation, or that one, or that one, or they came to our place. We didn't go really outside of our family with anything. And we lived full life, I'm telling you, because there was quite a few of us. We had really good times. Every weekend we'd have something going on. There's no shortage of that. I mean, not being any television. We got together, and people would play instruments and carry on. And basically, they enjoyed each other. And they liked being together. Nothing to get together with 20, 30 relations on a weekend. Big picnics and carrying on down at the lake and whatever. And when I was about 8 years old, I think it was maybe about 8, I remember going to Grandpa's place for Christmas. And that was the deal then. You didn't have Christmas you had Christmas at home too, but on Christmas Eve, you went to Grandpa's, that's it. Either if it snowed too much, you had to go with horses and sleigh. If it didn't, well, you could maybe get there with a car. Well, there was lots of times that I went there with horses and sleigh. Start off in the afternoon and get there by 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. And the place was just jammed full. It was a big farmhouse with a big porch, covered porch outside, the whole width of the house. And inside was a big living room. Basically, the house was a kitchen, a living room, and 2 bedrooms on the bottom floor, and 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms upstairs. And I thought it was a big house. I remember people sitting at the table for supper. A long table went right through the kitchen and right out to practically into the living room, and people were all sitting there. And I think they had like 2 settings. And I think Grandpa had around 30 grandchildren, because he had 11 kids all told. Yeah, that's happening too. Or no. 5 girls and 2 boys. 7 and 2, 9. He had 9. And mind you, there was 7 girls, so they all had families. And my uncle, there were only 2 boys, my dad and my uncle. And so everybody had, 3, 4 kids, 4, maybe more, but at least 3 or 4. And you go 3, 4, 7, 4 times 7 is 28. Well, I mean, 4 times 7, 3, 4 kids, yeah, 28, 30, yeah. And we were all just like one level going up like that. Young kids. And Grandpa sat in the corner in his big easy chair, rocking chair. And the tree was right beside him. And he sat back there, hands folded, sitting there. And we had to come up in a line, up to Grandpa, and we had to sing a little song, or tell a little story, or whatever. And then he'd pass it on, and we'd get our little bag of goodies. And here's the one thing I remembered more than anything else, all my life. My uncle, Sturry, Dad's brother, he was an extrovert. He was always acting up and doing stuff. Anyway, he lived about 2 miles away. He drove there with his wife and 2 daughters and his son in a sleigh, kind of a cutter, but it was a two horse team, and a big cutter, I guess you'd call it, or sleigh. And he had bells for the horses. He would take the bells and wrap them up in blankets, put them in there, and he'd drive into the place, park down by the barn, unhitch the horses, put them in the barn, and he'd come in. Yep. Well, supper was like at 5 o'clock, 5:30, around 5. And I mean, it was getting dark and all that. And we'd finish supper, and then they'd start to say, well, Santa could be coming soon, yes. And oh, well, go to the window, scrape the frost off, look in the window. Oh, couldn't see him. It was a nice moonlit night. Snow all over the place, moon shining. And nobody paid attention, but Sturry, my uncle, disappeared. He went out, harnessed up his horse. Well, he didn't have to harness them up. Hooked up his horses to the sleigh and went out the gate, down the road, maybe a quarter of a mile. He took the bells out of the blankets, put them on the horses, and this was dark, pitch dark. Turned around and come back with the horses, and he said, here the bells go. And somebody would say, I can hear something coming. Oh, and as kids, plastered at the windows. Eyes glued to the window, just saucer-eyed, the eyes of saucers, looking for this. And we could hear them, because they'd open the door and you could hear bung, 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 coming in the dark, pulling up. He stayed away from the house a bit in the dark. And you get out, his red suit on and toque and whatever, and a big sack comes walking towards the house in the dark. And the kids are, here's Santa, oh, here's Santa, just going like. And he came in, sat down, and of course, sat his bag down, He had a present there for every kid. And you had to come sit on his knee. And what's your name? Oh yeah. Have you been a good boy this year or something? Oh yeah. Okay. Reach in, give you a present. Oh, went through all that. To me, that was the cream de la cream Christmas in my life. I think I was about 8. And to me, that was just everything. I mean, everything was hitting on all cylinders. And, the presents, or peanuts, oranges, nuts, and we'd had a present at some time, 1 or 2 maybe. But, yeah, and I never give it a thought as to the legitimacy of this, because there wasn't. But, as much as I say it's too bad that it's a false deal, it is not a bad deal, in a way, because I don't know if it's as good now, but when there was big families and they all got together, that was a big family deal. Big. And I think that's gone now. It's way down. There's no more big families. And I don't know, I guess maybe quite a few of them have realized, like I have, that basically the idea that they promote is BS. That's not true. And basically it's a commercialized deal. It's a pagan holiday. All the holidays that the world celebrates big time are all pagan holidays. Every one. God's holidays, there's only certain people that do that. There's about 5 or 6 a year. There's quite a few different ones. I've never really attended any because I didn't know about them. But one of the main ones is the Feast of Tabernacles, and they have the Feast of different ones. They usually go for a couple of days. In the Bible it says when Christ returns to this earth and runs this earth, he will expect people to attend to his Feast of Tabernacles. And if they don't attend his Feast of Tabernacles, they won't have any rain. Now you say, well, how are you going to do that? Well, I can guarantee you he can do that, because I've asked him, in a prayer, I asked him to change the weather for 4 hours so we could burn this huge big pile of lumber and brush pile and whatever on April the 12th. And it had been a south wind for several weeks, and we needed a north wind to blow the smoke away from the project. There was 450 homes, and we couldn't do it. So I just plainly asked him, please, would you allow us to do that? Like clockwork, on April 12th, we lit the fire. First of all, it was dead, nothing. And they lit it, and it went straight up, and then the soft wind to the south, north wind. And I said, oh, thank you very, very much, because it had been a south wind for over 2 weeks. And I waited, got to be about 11 o'clock or so, and I told them, I said, that's it. You got to kill the fire now, whatever's left. It had burned down pretty well, good enough. I said, put the fire hoses on it and just kill it. And by about 20 after 11, 11:30, the wind changed to a south wind again, blowing north. All around was a south wind, except right in that spot there was a north wind. Now, who can control that? And I'm not making this up. No. I mean, there's weather records if you want to look it up. Before and after on that day. Because we had to do it by the 15th or fire season would be off. I just use that as an example that I think that God actually likes doing things like that. God is in charge of all the weather on the whole planet. Now that's mind-boggling when you think about it. How many different directions the wind's blowing here, blowing there, blowing there. All the things that are happening with the weather. If you control the weather, you can control the whole planet. But I'm quite sure that in all honesty that God, I think he likes to show things like that. I think he does. He's done other things that I've prayed for, and you know, one was a big thing. I didn't just pray for it. I had other people praying for me too, but that was to save my 4-year-old son, who was destined to die in 2 weeks because he had a blood disease, and it turned out. He was in the hospital for about 2.5 days. The third day I went in and picked him up and brought him home. Not a black mark on his legs anymore. Nothing. Healed. Oh yeah, I thank God many times for that, and I will continue to thank him for that. Because that was real, and it was totally real. Yeah. Well, I think I want to just close this out with saying it would be in our I think in our advantage, or our reason for believing that we have a reason here to do this, and that is Jesus Christ said, "Go and be a witness for me." He didn't say anything else. He said, "Be a witness for me." Well, I'm trying to witness for him here. I think you should, because you're witnessing something that is absolutely true, and you can't say this about things going on in this world. They're all ulterior motives and BS and lies. So anyway, let's leave it right there. I'm going to wish you a Merry Christmas because it's that time of year, I guess. Not that it's Jesus Christ's birthday or anything. No. But I'm going to wish you that because it's a family get-together thing. You have a family. And the end of the year, we're going to be starting a new year in a couple of weeks. So until we meet again, which could possibly be next year, I don't know. I want to wish you good luck, good family get-together, and a Happy New Year coming up. I hope so. A good New Year. I don't know, there's most likely going to be a lot of things happen in the new year that could shake things up quite a bit. But anyway, we're here to observe it, and hopefully we'll gain by it. Anyway, good night, and God bless you.